The Bible offers you an unforgettable journey. Each video is a map that will guide you to hidden treasures. Verify the biblical references and discover how every word connects to the others, creating a complete picture of divine truth. Jehovah is the true God of the Bible, the creator of all things. Revelation 4:11. He was worshipped by the prophets Abraham and Moses, as well as by Jesus. Genesis 24:27. Exodus 15:1-2, John 20:17. He is not the God of just one people, but of all the earth. Psalm 47:2. Jehovah is God's unique name revealed in the Bible. Exodus 3:15, Psalm 83:18. It comes from a Hebrew verb that means to become, and various scholars suggest that this name means he causes to become. This definition fits well with Jehovah's role as the creator and the fulfiller of his purpose. Isaiah 55:10-11. The Bible also helps us to understand what kind of person Jehovah is, and in particular his primary quality, love. Exodus 34:5, 7, Luke 6:35, 1, John 4:8. The name Jehovah is an English translation of God's Hebrew name, represented by the four letters YHVH, YHWH, known as the Tetragrammaton. Although the exact pronunciation of God's name in ancient Hebrew is unknown, this form of the name Jehovah has been known and used for a long time in the English language. One of the first Bibles in Italian to use the divine name was a translation by Antonio Brucioli in 1540. Ancient Hebrew was written without vowels. Only consonants were used. The Hebrew reader would automatically supply the correct vowels. However, after the Hebrew scriptures, Old Testament, were completed, some Jews adopted the superstition that it was wrong to pronounce God's personal name. When reading aloud a verse that contained God's name, they would substitute titles such as Lord or God. Over the centuries, this superstition spread and the ancient pronunciation was lost. Some believe that the divine name was pronounced Yahweh, while others suggest different pronunciations. In a Dead Sea Scroll containing a portion of Leviticus in Greek, the name is transliterated as Iao. Ancient Greek writers also suggest the pronunciations Ia, Iabe, and Iahweh, but there is no evidence that any of these was the pronunciation used in ancient Hebrew. Reality. The Hebrew word corresponding to God's name in the form of the Tetragrammaton occurs nearly 7,000 times in the Bible. Most translations arbitrarily remove God's name and replace it with a title such as Lord. Reality. God himself inspired the Bible writers to use his name thousands of times and arranged for his worshippers to use it. Isaiah 42:8, Joel 2:32, Malachi 3:16, Romans 10:13. In fact, God condemned false prophets who tried to make people forget his name. Jeremiah 23:27. Reality. Some Jewish scribes did refuse to pronounce the divine name, yet they did not remove it from their copies of the Bible. However, God does not want us to be influenced by human traditions that deviate from his commandments. Matthew 15:1-3. Reality. This reasoning assumes that God expects his name to be pronounced the same way in all languages. However, the Bible indicates that in the past, God's worshippers who spoke different languages pronounced proper names in different ways. For example, consider the Israelite judge Joshua. First-century Christians who spoke Hebrew would have pronounced his name Yehoshua, while those who spoke Greek would have said Jesus. The fact that the Bible records the Greek translation of Joshua's Hebrew name indicates that it was normal for Christians to use proper names in the form common in their language. Acts 7:45, Hebrews 4:8. The same principle can be applied to the translation of the divine name. Knowing its exact pronunciation is not essential. Far more important is that God's name be given its rightful place in the Bible. For more information, watch the video, The Divine Name in the Greek Scriptures. Dead Sea Scroll from the first half of the 1st century CE, containing a passage from the Psalms. The text is written in the Hebrew characters used after the Babylonian exile. while the Tetragrammaton appears several times in Paleo-Hebrew characters. The divine name, represented by the 4 Hebrew consonants YHVH known as the Tetragrammaton, appears nearly 7,000 times in the Hebrew scriptures. In this translation, the Tetragrammaton is rendered Jehovah. That name is by far the most frequently used in the Bible. Although inspired writers referred to God by many titles and descriptive terms, such as Almighty, Most High, and Lord, the Tetragrammaton is the only personal name they use to refer to God. Jehovah God himself caused Bible writers to use his name. For example, he inspired the prophet Joel to declare, "Everyone who calls on the name of Jehovah will be saved." Joel 2:32. He also moved the psalmist to write, "Let people know that you, whose name is Jehovah, you alone are the most high over all the earth." Psalm 83:18. In fact, the divine name appears some 700 times in the book of Psalms alone, a collection of poetic compositions that were sung and recited by God's people. The reason is that this form of the divine name has long been known and attested in the English language. The first rendering of God's personal name in an English Bible appeared in 1530 in William Tyndale's translation of the Pentateuch. He used the form Jehovah. Over time, the English language changed, and the spelling of the divine name was modernized. For example, in 1612, Henry Ainsworth used the form Jehovah throughout his translation of the Book of Psalms. Then, in 1639, when that work was revised and printed with the Pentateuch, the form Jehovah was used. In 1901, the translators who produced the American Standard Version of the Bible used the form Jehovah where the divine name appeared in the Hebrew text. Explaining why he used Jehovah instead of Yahweh in his 1911 work studies in the Psalms, respected Bible scholar Joseph Bryant Rotherham said that he wanted to employ a form of the name more familiar, while perfectly acceptable, to the general Bible-reading public. In 1930, scholar A.F. Kirkpatrick made a similar point regarding the use of the form Jehovah. He said, "Modern grammarians argue that it ought to be read Yahweh or Yahweh, but Jehovah seems firmly rooted in the English language, and the really important point is not the exact pronunciation, but the recognition that it is a proper name, not merely an appellative title like Lord." What is the meaning of the name Jehovah? The Hebrew name Jehovah is derived from a verb meaning to become, and according to various scholars, it reflects the causative form of that Hebrew verb. For this reason, the New World Bible Translation Committee has concluded that God's name means He causes to become. Scholars have differed in their opinions on this matter, so we cannot be dogmatic about its meaning. However, this definition accords well with Jehovah's role as the creator of all things and the fulfiller of His purpose. Thus, the meaning of the name Jehovah is not limited to the related verb found at Exodus 3:14, which reads, "I will become what I choose to become," or "I will prove to be what I prove to be." Strictly speaking, these words do not fully define God's name. Rather, they reveal an aspect of His personality, indicating that in each circumstance, He becomes what is needed to fulfill His purpose. So while the meaning of the name Jehovah may include this idea, it is not limited to what He Himself chooses to become. It also includes what He causes to happen in connection with His creation and the outworking of His purpose. The Tetragrammaton, YHWH, He causes to become, and the verb HWH, to become. Discover the divine name in the Christian Greek scriptures by watching the dedicated video. Subscribe to the channel to stay updated.